Welcome to the Baja 4. We are the 4 Unitarian Universalist Congregations in Southern Arizona, and we know that we are stronger together than apart. We welcome you to this service today. We are also here to officially celebrate that it is finally fall in Southern Arizona, and we hope that each of you across this beautiful desert are wearing your warmest clothing, finding warmth in the chill and crispness in the changing seasons. We also share this region and we gather in an ecological landscape of stories and beings. One of our practices each week is to name a fuller ancestral landscape, one that includes accountability, responsibility, and possibility for tending relationships and ways of being that have been broken and fragmented. And we do this each week by acknowledging first and foremost that this land that we call Sierra Vista or Tucson or Amado is stolen land. that it occurred through waves of colonization by Spanish, Mexican, and then North American people through theft and genocide. And each week we say the names of the ancestral and contemporary people of this land. We name the Apache, Pasquayaqui, the Opata, and the O'odham peoples. I invite us to hold this weekly practice of saying these names and acknowledging this longer history, especially alongside our service today and its message of what's possible when we tell a truer story and then act in solidarity with one another. Our service today features a guest speaker, guest storyteller, and guest musician from UU Jazz. Unitarian Universalist Justice Arizona, or UU Jazz, strives to energize people of faith to create an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just life for all those who live in Arizona. UU Jazz is what we call a statewide action network. It's one of about 20 UU organizations across the United States that organize congregations and community partners in their state to make concrete changes in the lives of people where they live. Now, today we will hear from our statewide leader and executive director, Janine Gelsinger. Janine invites us to imagine what kind of justice ecology makes a new world possible. We will hear real stories of how each of us has something we can do, no matter who you are. And those stories that we hear today reveal what is possible when we choose to focus our energies together in partnership for action. At the end, we will hear of a couple opportunities and a special Issues and Action Day opportunity this month in Arizona. So I invite you today to delight in some fresh voices and real stories, and then a heartfelt invitation to be part of making our principles real together this month in this community. In the spirit of collaborative partnerships and the power that emerges when we choose to come together, I invite you now to find a chalice or candle where you are and to join me for our Baja 4 Chalice Lighting.
We are the Baja 4, representing Unitarian Universalists across Southern Arizona. Though we come from different places, we share the common covenant of our Unitarian Universalist principles.
I bring sand from Sierra Vista, which is the home of Sky Island Unitarian Universalist Church.
May we be grounded by this earth.
We bring air from the Catalina Mountains, which stand tall over the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tucson.
May we be enlivened by this air. I bring water from the Santa Cruz River, which nourishes the land and all its creatures around Mountain Vista Unitarian Universalist Congregation. May we be nourished by this water.
I bring fire, source of all creation. From Borderlands Unitarian Universalist, symbolizing the hot sun of our Sonoran Desert.
May we be inspired by this fire.
From this land, this air, these waters, this fire, we know that we are part of a great interdependent web of creation which holds us all. As Unitarian Universalists, we join together as the Baja 4 to acknowledge our interdependence with one another and with all of the earth.
We gather as the Baja 4. We are stronger together.
This one's called Be Still. It's an original. It's written mid-pandemic when everything was out of control. And I was in the throes of a full-fledged panic attack, and my girlfriend turned to me and just said, "Be still." And this just kind of fell out. Sir, all the mooring has come loose. I don't know how long ago. We've been adrift at sea. For how long, I don't know. The clouds came rolling in. They've blacked out all the stars. I don't know where I am. I don't know where we are. She said, "Be still. Just listen for your breath. Somewhere in the waves. Haven't left you yet. By the palm of my hand. Letting waves set the pace. Out over troubled water. She led us in grace to the dance by the light of the moon, and some warm embrace. She said, "Be still. Trust in me." She said, "Be still. Just listen for your breath. It's somewhere in the waves. Haven't left you yet."
Hi, I'm the Director of Children's Ministry at UUC Phoenix. Once, many, many, many years ago, in 2018, there was an amazing land. This land was full of celebrations, of dancing, of parties, of theater, children playing in the playground, all sorts of beautiful things. Can you imagine? This land also had its struggles. There were people who didn't have enough to eat. There were people who had a hard time finding a house. There were people whose homes weren't safe. There were people who couldn't find work to do that they loved. And sometimes if they did find work, it wasn't good. But it was still a beautiful land. It was warm and sunny, and sometimes there were huge storms that would come in and out. It was an amazing place. And people really did love their lives. They found all sorts of different things to do. And just like for us today, there were farmers, there were nurses, there were people who worked in churches, there were people who wrote, people who worked on computers, people who built things. And then there were those who passed on knowledge. See, they found their work through pay, for pay, by telling other people the wisdom they had gathered. And some of them gathered a lot of wisdom about one thing and passed that knowledge on. And some of them learned a lot about a lot of different things and helped people understand sort of an overview of how to be a person. And it was everything from how to be kind to how to fix a broken radiator in your Mustang. These folks who passed on wisdom, let's call them teachers, they had hard work. And see, it was tricky because their work was wonderful and fulfilling, and they often taught in subjects that they were curious about, and they learned while they taught. But because of the way the land was coordinated and created, sometimes it meant that all children had to go and be with the teachers for almost all of the year. And sometimes it meant that those teachers themselves had to stay at work from 7 a.m. through class time, working with kids after school, all the way through theater productions and sports practices, and didn't get home at night until 8 or 9 p.m. They were exhausted. You can imagine how hard that would be. And people knew that the work of the teachers was hard. And in this community, people knew that it should be better. And so rumblings started. At first, among just the teachers, who organized and gathered each other to try to figure out what they could do. And then they started talking to their family and their friends to figure out how could it be that the people in charge of passing on knowledge were too tired, sometimes too poor, and often too hungry, and needed to pee way too bad to learn more themselves. So those teachers all got back together, had a big conversation, and came up with a plan. And their plan was a good one. They were going to help remind everyone how important their work was. But most importantly, they were going to tell the leaders of the land that something needed to change, and it needed to change big. But you see, they couldn't do it on their own. So they called their community to them, and it was amazing to see what people did. The teachers themselves would gather outside the schools in early morning, holding signs, giving people information, handing out flyers and saying, "Did you know this? Did you know that this is what our work looks like? Did you know that this is what our expectations are? And did you know that you can help make a change?" And there were so many different ways that people helped. The most important was through legislature and the laws, and working to make sure that the people who wrote the laws understood what needed to happen. And that was important, and everyone who could work towards that. But then there were other pieces too. Early morning teachers needed early morning donuts and coffee. So there were families who brought boxes of donuts outside the schools so teachers could eat. There were people who babysat teachers' kids so that they could go to organizing meetings. The teachers decided that together they would clothe themselves in red. And so there were people who helped find red shirts, red scarves, red hats, whatever they could. And people began to wear red themselves. because that color became the color of, we're in this together. We're doing this with you. It was pretty amazing. As people would pass each other in the streets, they would see one another's red shirts and smile. You're working too. And they didn't always know what the other person was doing. Maybe they were a teacher. Maybe they were delivering donuts. Maybe they were babysitting. Maybe they were writing legislation. You didn't know. All you knew was that they were on the same team, working together. It was amazing. At one point, the teachers all gathered together to go to the leaders of the land. They went and stayed on the lawn of the great buildings, a huge, huge gathering of people with music from the band teachers, of course, history lessons from the history lessons, of course, and lots of drama, but also amazing group projects. The teachers decided that as much as they loved their work, they needed to stop. They needed to advocate for themselves. They needed to speak up and take time to go to the leaders and say, hey, I'm here. This is what I need. So that was a big change and a big shift, because these are the people who had always taken care of the children. What are we going to do with the kids if the teachers are off yelling about how they want to be able to eat and maybe go pee once in a while? How will we take care of our kids? Oh, wait. The people figured out how to do that. Churches opened babysitting centers so kids could be watched. Tutoring programs were set up so no one lost classwork. Parents wrote letters to schools saying, I am okay with the schools being shut. I support the teachers, so that the school boards couldn't say, oh, the parents are against this. And then there were leaders who weren't teachers, who just knew that education was important. Parents who came out of their houses and marched to the legislature, knocked up on doors and said, hey, this needs to change. These are leaders who taught themselves how government works so that they could advocate for teachers. It was an amazing time, so long ago, in that wild land of Arizona. And there was such moments of perfect beauty. Performances on the lawn of the legislature. Students sitting in playgrounds together, working on homework. And maybe the most beautiful thing was the day that the teachers all came together, all dressed in red, and marched through town. It was a true sea of people, stretched all the way to the Capitol. It was beautiful. And it was for the teachers. Everyone didn't have to march. There were auto mechanics who were at home making sure the meals were cooked so that the teachers could be fed. Because we needed to give teachers a chance to speak for themselves, and we needed to give them that power, and we needed to show them that we were behind them. It does seem like a long time ago. And it also feels like a lot hasn't changed when it comes to the way teachers' jobs are shaped, especially during pandemic, when we saw teachers forced to teach online, when we saw them having to completely change their curriculum and also how they taught in the middle of the year, and to wait on tenterhooks and see what the next year would bring. And now that so many Arizona teachers are back in school, they're still waiting on bathroom breaks. But here's the thing. That beautiful, glorious moment of red marching to the legislature was a victory. That beautiful, glorious moment where we all came together and did our parts to support them was a victory. We can't say we failed. But what we need to say is the work goes on. After those big, shining moments, we are still writing legislature. We are still voting. We are still bringing donuts and coffee. We are still making sure that those wisdom keepers, the ones who pass on knowledge, are going to be taken care of, because it takes all of us. And it takes all sorts of work to do it. Because that beautiful land with the storms blowing in and out, with all sorts of amazing work and jobs and lives and celebrations, is important. And each of us have a very, very important role in keeping it wonderful and healthy and safe. Remember, you are very powerful and you are very loved.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to tell you a story about my summer in northern Minnesota, protesting the Line 3 pipeline. Now, Line 3, as many of you may know, is part of Enbridge Oil Company, and it's a tar sands pipeline, which means it's one of the most dirty and dangerous pipelines. And this new route is going right through the headwaters of the Mississippi River. Now, even us in the deserts of Arizona understand that the Mississippi River is a huge supply of fresh water to everyone who lives in North America. And it also is Anishinaabe sacred land that was given to the Anishinaabe people by treaties that are now being broken. Land that grows wild rice, which is sacred to the Anishinaabe people. And so water protectors from all over have been gathering in northern Minnesota to protest this pipeline, to stop the construction of the pipeline. And I was fortunate to be able to go out to Minnesota to be part of the Line 3 protest twice, once in June and once in July. Now, some of you may have heard the stories of some of the folks I went with, of Elena Perez, one of our amazing UU Indigenous board members who went up to Line 3 to protest and was arrested for taking action. And you might have seen the stories of some of my other UU colleagues and our partners at BLM Phoenix Metro and Sunrise and White People Against White Supremacy and Otham Stronghold, who also came up to risk arrest to protest the pipeline. And these are amazing stories of heroic acts, to risk your body, to risk arrest, to sit in the heat and the mosquitoes for hours chained to a pipeline in order to stop the desecration of the water, in order to say we should honor the treaties and end this colonialist practice of stealing away indigenous land rights. And some of you may have heard these stories. In fact, some of you even contributed to our fundraiser to raise bail funds for all the water protectors. And for that, we are so grateful. Thank you for being a part of that. And today I want to tell you maybe a lesser known story of some of the other people involved in the Line 3 protest. Because we see a lot of images of the folks that are chained to the pipelines. But what we know, the folks on the front lines, is that it takes a lot of people to pull off this kind of action, and not everyone has to chain themselves to the pipeline. Some of the other roles that you might not be as familiar with in a direct action involve all the things it takes to run a camp. When we showed up in Minnesota the first time, we were at the Treaty People Gathering, which means we entered a camp in the middle of a field that sprang up out of seemingly nowhere, full of 200 people. There were folks who had to be part of setting up that camp. There were folks who cooked all day. There were folks who were there just to sit at the welcome tent and make sure that people had the information that they need. One of my favorite roles when I entered the camp was the shuttle drivers who just drove their car up and down the hill all day to transport folks who had parked along the side of the road all the way into the field where the camp was, to save people that really long walk and make sure that it was accessible for people of all abilities. When we were there the second time, we had so many folks helping us out, from the UU congregation in Minneapolis, who let us use their space to sleep overnight on our way up north and to use their space for an art build. From the people who led the art build, folks who could draw a straight line with a ruler and wanted to spend some time together, painting and filling in letters so that we would have big, impactful visuals for the protests. People without even art skills themselves sometimes, but people who wanted to pitch in and lend a hand. Some of you may know Reverend Meg Riley, who is one of the co-moderators of the UUA, one of the highest positions that you can have as a UU. And Meg Riley wasn't out there doing press or saying prayers. Meg Riley participated by making 2 huge pots of chili and showing up at our direct action training to feed all of the protesters that had come from Arizona to be part of this action. I cannot even think of a better example of how it takes everyone in their humility than Meg Riley cooking chili for us. There were so many other people who took roles in this protest, and one of my favorite parts I wanted to share with you was the assignment I had of running jail support. So jail support is a behind the scenes role where our job is to keep track of everyone who might possibly be arrested. We make a big piece of paper with everyone's name, their emergency contact's name and their phone number. And we go through and call and let people know that their loved one has been arrested. And then we hold that phone line open. We're the ones that folks call to check on their loved ones, and we're the ones that folks call from jail. We make sure that people know we have their back, that someone is looking out for them, that we know where they are and we know how they're getting out. And then we're the ones who pick them up outside the jail when they get released and make sure they have their favorite foods and their favorite Starbucks order and anything that might bring them comfort after spending time in jail. It's not a role that people get to interact with very often, but it's a role that I love, because the truth is, I'm a little bit past my days of getting chained to a pipeline. I'm a little bit past my days of camping outside. but I know that jail support is a really, really big role, and it feels good to be even a small part. Another accidental role that I got into when I was there was when I drove one of our friends to be part of a protest. It was at the headwaters of the Mississippi, led by the Anishinaabe folks. And I knew I had to stay in the car because it was my job to be by the phone, ready to hear from people in jail. And so I was waiting in the car while she protested with the rest of the folks down at the bottom of the hill. And when the protest was over and people started to walk back up this really large hill from the river basin, someone walked by me and said, "Hey, are you giving rides to our cars?" Now, I hadn't planned on that. But when he asked, I thought, well, I'm waiting here anyway, why not? And so that's how I became an accidental shuttle driver after one of our protests. And I just have to tell you all, it was the most rewarding thing I have ever done. I got to meet people from all over the country that had come in to protest this pipeline. I got to learn where they came from and why they were here. And all I did was drive up and down a hill, driving from the bottom of the river where they were protesting back up to the camp where they were staying, probably a dozen times. It was very easy. But the people in the car were so grateful that they didn't have to walk uphill after protesting on their feet for 3 hours. It was a way to add accessibility, but it was also a way for me to participate, even though my role wasn't out there protesting with everyone else. So I tell you all this story because I want to invite you to participate in this year's Issue and Action Day. This is an event from UU Jazz, our state action network, that has been held since 2014. And Issue and Action Day is usually a time where we all come together across the state in person, and we hold workshops and have worship service and have lunch together. Well, as you might have predicted, it's a little different this year. Our board has made the decision that we should again have a virtual Issues and Action Day. And I know that that isn't ideal for everyone, but we thought hard about what would be impactful to invite you all to. And this year, we're holding a discernment workshop. We are going to hold space along with the UU College of Social Justice to invite you into discernment about how you can be part of this direct action ecosystem. No, not everyone has to chain themselves to a pipeline, although there will be a workshop for that if that's what you want to be doing. But there'll also be training on how to be a street medic, how to be a legal observer, how to be a press liaison. Maybe you want to be a musician, the art builds that we were talking about before, or a chef. And this is all in service to be able to say that as Unitarian Universalists, we are a network that is ready for action. We are a network that is ready to tell our partners that we can show up with dozens of people who are trained and ready to take direct action, with people who are trained as legal observers, with people who are trained as press liaisons, as medics, and we can let our partners know that UUs are ready to show up. I know sometimes it can feel so hard with everything going on today, and it can feel like we're powerless, that nothing we do is making a difference. But together, as a state, as a network, we are powerful. Every person has their little piece of the justice ecosystem. Join me, and together, we will make a difference.
I was asked to record a song for you guys, and as fate would have it, my dryer went out and everything just fell apart. And the theme was supposed to be everybody does their part, big or small. Take care of a kid, go out to a protest, do what you got to do. Everybody does their part, and every piece fits together and make it work. So I thought I'd add to the humility, and I've got my laundry behind me here. So look around you, and if you got stuff laying around that's undone or halfway done, just take a breath. And it's okay. We'll get to the end, and hopefully this makes it okay. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe on a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone best these seeds I sow. Someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down, pulling weeds and picking stones. Man made of dreams and loans, feel the need to grow my own. The time is close at hand, grain for grain and sun and rain. Find my way to nature's chain, to my body and my brain, to the music from the land. Oh yeah, inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe, and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone best these seeds I sow. Someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Plant your rows straight and long, temper them with prayer and a song. Mother Earth will make you strong if you give her love and care. And an old crow watching hungrily from his perch in the yonder tree. My garden, I'm as free as he, as that feathered thief up there. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make that garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe, and this piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone best these seeds I sow. Someone warm it from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Inch by inch, row by row, someone best these seeds I sow. Someone warm it from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Inch by inch, row by row, Thank you, folks.
I will close our service today with words from the Poet Laureate of the United States, Joe Harjo, who's a member of the Muskegon or Creek Nation and the first Indigenous Poet Laureate of the United States. I offer these words to you as we extinguish our chalice in hopes that our service today inspired you to curiosity, to contemplation, and to the possibility of your role in an ecology of justice here in Arizona, and a hope that you might make it to Issues and Action Day. But in a spirit of closing and in the wisdom of Joy Harjo, here is her poem, Eagle Poem. To pray, you open your whole self, to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. And know there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know, except in moments that aren't always sound, but other circles of motion. Like eagle, that Sunday morning over Salt River, circled in blue sky and wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this. And breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born, and die soon within a true circle of motion. Like eagle, rounding out the morning inside us. And we pray that it will be done in beauty. In beauty.